Scott's noticed the Permaculture Design Manual discrepancy with the ethics. His question is about the thought process behind this discrepancy. Now, I know exactly what Scott's talking about here. Forget about earth care and people care, the first two ethics. The third ethic, which I quote as the return of surplus to the first two ethics. And Bill puts in the manual control of population and consumption. Now, the manual was published in 1988, so it was written before that, and that was a different era and a different period. Now we have a massive amount of information available, and we can now look at what it is that you're actually talking about when it comes to population, because we're facing this massive problem with population, and of course consumption, which we have all the figures on. Now, central to permaculture is understanding a few things in relation to energy audit. In other words, a sustainable system produces more energy than it consumes, enough in surplus to create, maintain, and replace a system's component parts over their lifetimes. And the whole system is continuously replenished then. That's a minimum criteria for sustainability. You've got to go beyond that to have surplus to trade and sell. So that's the energy audit we should put on everything that we consume. Our consumption, the ethics of our consumption, we should aim towards positive energy audit. In other words, everything we consume should be beneficial to the planet in that it's produced in a sustainable way, where it produces more energy than it consumes, enough to not just create, maintain and replace the system it comes from or the component parts of that system, but also add more to the life systems of Earth, add more to the soil fertility. So our consumption now in this information age, where we can easily gain extra information and extra education when we're looking for the right questions, I don't think we need to mention that. We've gone past the point where we understand we have to put limits on consumption. The classic limit would be not just the components. Does this food, let's say, what beneficial elements does it contain, and does it contain GMO, or does it contain detrimental elements like toxins? Of course we want to know those things. We don't want to eat the bad food that's got bad things in it, and we want to know what the good elements are in it. But also what we really need to look at is, where did the energy come from to produce it? Even if it's organic, you might be eating organic food that's got a very terrible energy audit, and it might not have been grown with people care. It might have enslaved people on very poor working conditions and wages, or it might have been grown on compost that had been trucked hundreds of kilometers, and then it might have been shipped around the world before you consumed it. That's all part of the energy audit. And today in the information age, that's all achievable, no problem. That's the limit to consumption we obviously need. Now, population. When you actually do research on population, you find that there are some natural limitations to population, and they're very good limitations, and they're around wealth. When we feel wealthy, when we consider ourselves wealthy, we've got all our resource needs met, and we don't have to work very hard to achieve that. Our fertility drops. Now, if you want to check this out, you can. I've come to these understandings, I've come to this research information by asking those questions. If you want to find the most infertile people in the world, go to the places in the world where they consider themselves to be really wealthy, when they consider themselves to have plenty of resources, and there's social systems that have security nets. So if you go to the richest countries in the world, where people really think they're very wealthy and they're very spoiled, they've got everything they need, you'll find the largest concentration of infertility clinics per capita. But if you go to places where people are suffering, they haven't got enough food, they haven't got enough resources, or even they're in a conflict zone, a war zone, they have no problem with fertility. This is called the biological effect, and it works for all living things. When a living element is threatened to the edge of its extinction, the fertility rate goes up. Now, Monetary wealth at the moment is a consuming wealth of the world's resources, and it wastes the resource-based energy, the finite resource-based energy, and also wastes the renewable energy like sunlight. It could be so much better designed. So if you look at a system that does actually take into consideration the energy audit efficiency and aims and drives that towards the positive beneficial effect, and you define wealth as an abundance of clean air. Thousands of people die every year because of our own polluted air, which is crazy. So an abundance of clean air is a right of humanity. An abundance of clean water, water that's pure, water that has no detrimental components, and there's over 2,000 elements the World Health Organization say should not be in water at a certain percentage. None of those at that percentage. Potable water, more or less. An abundance of clean air, abundance of clean water, an abundance of clean food. We know all about that. It should be nutrient dense, it should be zero or minimum food miles, minimum food time, and minimum food guilt. So abundance of clean air, water, food, sensible housing. That could be done so much better. Warmth, you don't want to be cold, you don't want to be hot, you want to be just warm, nice temperatures. Live in nice conditions. Friendship and community. Let me run it through again. Clean air, clean water, clean food, sensible housing, warmth, friendship and community. If that's the definition of true wealth of humanity, we don't have to worry about the population. It self-moderates. Our birth rate moderates to our resource base, which we then understand as an energy audit which goes into a positive result. And we become the most beneficial element on earth. Now that I like to teach. That is how we engage in the third ethic. And that is why we return any surplus very sensibly, in a very developed and civilized way, back to earth care and people care. After that, we don't have to worry very much at all, because we're now truly the stewards of earth who care for the earth and increase its abundance and its magnificence. Nice question.